I know I tell you at the end of each week, right, to take a break so that you don't have a breakdown because we all need to tap out from moments of our body politic and following the news. But I did not take my own advice this weekend. And how could I when there were multiple shootings that happened over the course of the weekend? When there are threats of troops going into Portland, when Donald Trump is having an authoritarian meltdown, and all of this, right, to distract from a lot of other things that he is up to and doing, namely the fact that, oh, there were more details that came out about the Epstein files and whose names are present in there as Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Elon Musk, Steve Bannon, Peter Thiel, and others. And as I've said, to me, that Epstein list is probably the most bipartisan list we've ever seen. And I don't care. Because if you're a pedophile, you're a pedophile. If you're a sexual assaulter, you're a sexual assaulter. If you're a rapist, you're a rapist. I don't care what your party affiliation is. You should be taken down. But here we have this militarization escalation that we are witnessing. We are witnessing white male vigilante violence skyrocket while Donald Trump tries to gaslight us into believing that it is Antifa that is causing all of this mayhem, when in fact, some of these assailants had Trump Vance signs in their front fucking yard, right? Wearing Trump t-shirts on social media. Just like we were supposed to believe that the people on January 6th that defecated in our halls of Congress were somehow just lost tourists, I guess we're also supposed to believe that, guns and right-wing ideology don't go hand in hand. So, folks, I begin today. It is a jam-packed show, and I hope that you took advantage of the video that I had up over the weekend, as well as Watch Democracy-ish earlier today, where Wajahat and I packed in a lot. All of those videos are up now. Buckle up, dear friends. Happy Monday, damn nation. Let's get into it. Hello, and happy Monday to you, damn nation. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. As I said at the top, there is a lot to get through today. So if you got a drink, got a furry pet, do whatever you need to in order to stay with me and stay at some kind of level-mindedness. So we begin with the breaking news, which is that Donald Trump apparently has an idea. I know, pause for shock. Didn't know anything rattled around in that head of his other than, his next tanning appointment and how much cover up he should have on his hands. But this is what Donald Trump has said. He has proposed a ceasefire that he says that Hamas must take. At this point, I think the world is pretty clear on the fact that it's not Hamas that doesn't want a ceasefire. But take a listen.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others. And they'll be named over the next few days. And it'll be quite the board. Everybody wants to be on it now. I don't know if that had anything to do. They named me and everybody else wanted to be on it. I guess they figure, well, he's a soft touch. He'll be easy to deal with.
Is it just me, or when he is forced to actually read, you're questioning whether or not he's actually literate? Like, am I the only one that thinks that? Because the struggle is real. Like, it's so interesting. I'm just like, can he read? Because I'm unclear. You watch him with the teleprompters, with a book in front of him, and it's just like the words don't seem to be wording, as the kids say. Do you know what I'm saying? They don't seem to be connecting in his brain. And so now that apparently he thinks that this is some new fraternity that he's going to be leading up, like not the fact that hundreds of thousands of people have been slaughtered by the Israeli state, and he has leveled Gaza so that Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the rest of them can turn it into some type of French Riviera of the Mediterranean. Folks, like, the fact that Donald Trump would be named to anything and then everyone and their mother would be clamoring to be on that is beyond me. But also, you hear him mention Tony Blair, and I just want you to understand how far Tony Blair has fallen, because he is an absolute fucking Zionist and has lost all my respect and credibility. I remember when Tony Blair was prime minister, and and there was the equating of him and and Bill Clinton-esque and all of these things, and he has in his later years turned into an absolute bastard. So anytime that that Donald Trump is saying that you're a great guy, just know that that is probably somebody that you should say to yourself, I don't really want anything to do with that person. And that is Tony Blair. So that was breaking news. Then we have this, which I found really interesting. So I like Eric Swalwell, right? I think that Eric Swalwell has, gone to the mats multiple times, that he is a fighter, that he has been out front for quite some time in terms of the lackluster desire from Democrats to do anything other than the status quo. So he's on CNN, and he's talking a tough game. And I want you to listen to this, and then we'll talk about it on the other side, because I did have deep thoughts.
Well, first, we are making it clear that we're going into the majority a year from now. We have every intention to do that. And so we will bring oversight, accountability. We will subpoena the Department of Justice, but also private actors who have done these drug deals with the administration, college campuses, entertainment companies, law firms. And so accountability is coming. And so, one, it's all coming out. Two, I hope that deters people from doing more of these deals, these one-offs with the president. One other point, though, on Comey, Kate, this happened when Donald Trump was president. So if you're trying to tell me this is not politically motivated, the statement that they're referring to where he allegedly lied, Donald Trump was president. So why didn't you indict him then?
So here is my thought. We're not having midterm elections. I don't know how many times that I have to say this. And I know that people love to say that I am just being hyperbolic. And Danielle, like, don't worry, things are going to shake themselves out. It's not happening. Donald Trump is calling on multiple states to follow in the steps of Texas in order to gerrymander the electoral map, right? In order to gerrymander the congressional map, because he wants, quote unquote, 100 seats, a super majority that can never be broken for like a millennia. This is, shit that Donald Trump has been saying for the last couple of months. The only state that has stepped up and whose elections are in a month, right, are California. Gavin Newsom putting it up to a vote for his people because he was the only state that could get this done before midterm elections, right? In order to add more seats to the districts to combat what Texas is doing. But if you think that Donald Trump stationing the military around various cities is just like coincidence, or it isn't part of a larger strategy for militarized takeover, I am going to break down for you what exactly is happening. And for those of you who missed Democracy-ish, I am revisiting one of the orders that Donald Trump has put through that, guess what, folks, mainstream corporate media just didn't pay attention to because they were too busy worrying about the Comey indictment. But the way that things are being framed right now, the language that is being used by both Donald Trump and the shadow president, Hitler, Stephen Miller, in terms of saying that cities are war ravaged, that we are going after these terrorists, that there is no Democratic Party, as Stephen Miller said, there is just a domestic terror threat that is coming from the left. Donald Trump has said that no president in history has ever taken on the dismantling of the left, that he is putting the full weight of the government behind. In what world does Eric Swalwell and the rest of the Democratic Party think that Donald Trump is going to play by the rules in 2026 when he hasn't been playing by the rules since he put his hand on that book he don't read standing on the step? Actually, mind you, Donald Trump did not put his hand on the Bible on Inauguration Day 2025. Just FYI, pull up the pictures because he didn't. Nonetheless, this fantasy that Democrats find themselves in is just, to me, part and parcel of the larger problem that you are not actually meant for this moment, because you're not able to have a more expansive imagination around what can be done to stop these fascists. Like, you think that we're voting our way out of this. And is that what got Hitler out of Germany? I don't fucking think so. So, like, if that didn't work there or in Poland or in Italy or in these other places, like, why do you think that somehow the man that is in charge of every apparatus of our government, where we no longer have a separation of powers, that you think that he's just going to sit back and idly by as Democrats sweep the House and then begin to put a check and balance on him? Wake the fuck up. Okay? Like, come on. Let's be real. And somebody who is very real about what is going on right now and is very clear about what is happening right now is Governor Pritzker, right? And he's laying it out, and of course, C-SPAN covers it. And he is saying, if these things were happening in any other country right now, what would we be calling it?
In any other country, if federal agents fired upon journalists and protesters when unprovoked, what would we call it? If federal agents marched down busy streets, harassing civilians and demanding their papers, what would we say? I don't think we'd have any trouble calling it what it is: authoritarianism. So let's not pretend it's something else when it happens in our American cities.
And that's the thing, is that America for so long has gotten high on its own supply of the lie of American exceptionalism. They have believed that the things that have happened in other countries and other places would never happen here. Oh, because America is just better. We're this shining beacon on a hill. The fact of the matter is that very narrowed vision of America has left us ill prepared for a figure like Donald Trump, that in his first administration should have been a fucking enough for us to recognize, like, whoa, that's a scene I don't want to revisit again. But no, instead, 77 million Americans said, yes, please, sir, give me some more. And so here we find ourselves with federal agents on the street. We're watching cops in fucking camouflage march down and shine flashlights into cars and people's homes in the middle of the night. That is some Hitler Gestapo shit. So, like, when are we going to actually start naming this shit? And by we, I mean those with larger platforms and bigger microphones. Instead of trying to pretend that, like, oh, Donald Trump is just pushing the edge. This bitch is not pushing the edge. He has broken our democracy and he is selling it off for parts. And the sooner that people stop looking for euphemisms for this bullshit, the sooner that you will actually create a strategic plan to shut this country down. But then you have people like Chuck Schumer talking about, well, I think that if we can convince our fellow Republicans on the right that, a government shutdown isn't in the best interest of the American people. Shut the fuck up. Like, why is Chuck Schumer still speaking? Why are you still the minority leader in the Senate when you have proven yourself to be nothing more, right, than like a champion of the status quo? You're the reason why certain pieces of legislation that would never have passed with Democratic support passed, because you were doing the fucking job of the whip and trying to show that you're the adult in the room and, oh, we care about Lake and Riley and we care about this shit, knowing that it's all a ruse for authoritarianism and a way to criminalize immigrants and undocumented people. Give me a fucking break. I tell you that it is incredibly frustrating to still be at this place where you have folks like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries over the weekend, when Eric Adams, the criminal mayor currently of New York City, has announced that he will not be seeking re-election because guess what? No one wants that man leading us any goddamn place. And he has no support and no base. And oh, by the way, he's capitulated to Donald Trump so that Trump would drop his federal charges. So he's dropped out of the race. And what did Hakeem Jeffries do? Praise him for his work in New York City. Are you insane? By the way, for my fellow New Yorkers, if Hakeem Jeffries is your representative, that motherfucker's got to go. He has got to go. I don't care who runs against him. It could be a slice of Wonder Bread would be better than Hakeem Jeffries. You're praising a man that has had multiple indictments, that shut down our libraries in order to give the cops a fucking raise to harass and beat people. And you can't bother to not only pronounce Zoran Mamdani's name, but you can't bother to see that that's the future of the Democratic Party. And so instead, you're clinging on to AIPAC and Eric Adams. My God, you don't need any more information for these people to show you who they are and what they stand for. And they are corporatists who were put in place by the oligarchs to hold the line on the status quo, to give the people just enough and put up the presence of a fight, but not an actual fight with teeth. So he wants to get up there and drop some Biggie Smalls lines and, show how fucking down he is. What you're down with is Zionism and corporatism. And that is not representative of New York or fucking Brooklyn. Speaking of people who can't seem to, lie anymore because the numbers are just so egregious, Fox has finally, because they can't look away from what exactly is happening with our economy and, whose fault it is. Fox is finally starting to acknowledge how expensive everything is getting because of Trump's tariffs. Oh, by the way, he has put on 100% tariff on foreign movies. So I guess we'll just watch, Gone with the Wind 1,000 times over because that's more in his, line. Take a listen to this little ditty by Fox that talks about how beef is up wildly in this country.
Beef prices are higher. I got that. How much more are we actually paying?
Yeah, you're really going to be treating yourself at the grocery store, Stu. Take a look at this. For ground beef, prices are up about 14% year over year, or I should say 13%, I believe. Gross, 14%. Steaks, 17%.
Every single thing is up. When you're going to the grocery store, your receipt is much higher than it was 8 months ago. And there is no way around that in pretending that somehow this is good for the American people. That like we're going to start doing what they did during World War I and World War II, which is like meatless Mondays and like these little things, because guess what? People can't afford the shit that they once did. When she said, oh, people are going to be treating themselves at the grocery store, treating yourselves with what? The unemployment rate is up. Joblessness is up, right? So what exactly are you treating yourself with? Not to mention the fact that, oh, I don't know, since they've been in office, multiple things have been recalled, and I don't trust the Food and Drug Administration as fucking far as I can throw it. Everything is spinning out of control. This is one of the reasons, right? This reporting with regard to the inflation that is happening, that is because of Donald Trump's tariffs, that Donald Trump is like to corporations, oh, well, we shouldn't be doing quarterly reports anymore. Let's just do them twice a year so that we don't alert the public to the fact that the economy is in the shitter. We don't need quarterly reports to know that. You literally can figure that out yourself when you go to the store. And the things that Americans are going to be pulling back on is going to be a lot because they can't afford shit, which means that entire industries like tourism, airlines, hotels, things that, you know, were nice to haves, but they're not essential. Americans are going to have to start to function in the is this essential space because the dollar has lost 11% of its value since Donald Trump became president. I mean, every day, things just get worse and worse. And so here we go now. I want to give you a little throwback to when Mark Esper, right, was on 60 Minutes, you know, before 60 Minutes and CBS sold out to Donald Trump. This is back in the first administration. Tomorrow, all of the generals and admirals are going to be meeting in Quantico, Virginia, at the behest of a unstable Pete Hegseth. This is according to reports coming from inside the Pentagon that says that he is becoming more erratic and more unstable and more concerned with his own personal safety since the shooting of Charlie Kirk. But I want you to listen to Mark Esper and what he divulged, of course, in a book following his time with Donald Trump in the first administration about what Donald Trump actually wanted him to do when he was the Secretary of Defense. And now that you don't have, right, someone who believes in their oath to the Constitution, instead has sworn an oath to Donald Trump, I want you to take a listen to this.
Mike Pence, an effing loser?
He didn't call him directly, but he was looking at him when he was saying it. And it really caught my attention. And I thought that we're at a different spot now. He's going to finally give a direct order to deploy paratroopers into the streets of Washington, D.C., and I'm thinking with weapons and bayonets. And this would be horrible.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
The commander-in-chief was suggesting that the U.S. military shoot protesters.
Yes, in the streets
American
of our nation's
protesters.
capital. That's right. Shocking.
We have seen in other countries a government use their military to shoot protesters.
Right.
What kind of governments are those?
Well, those are banana republics, right, or authoritarian regimes. We all remember Tiananmen Square, right, in China.
He called Mike.
So this was an interview that he did, the former Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, did after the first Trump term. And so here is where we are today, which is that surprise announcement that Donald Trump is now going to be in attendance at this publicized secret meeting with all of the admirals and generals that are being pulled from their posts around the world, because the world is so stable right now, to attend a meeting in Quantico. Now, the video that I put up yesterday, which is up now that you all can watch, it was 2 minutes and 50 something seconds, where I said that this move by this administration is about a loyalty test. I believe that Pete Hegseth, at the behest of Donald Trump, is calling in all of the admirals and generals from around the world to see where their loyalties lie. And that he is going to force these people to take an oath to him and forego their oath to the Constitution. I also believe that if they choose instead their oath to the Constitution, that they will be summarily dismissed. Why do I say that? Because it was brought to our attention that 20 some odd FBI agents were fired a couple of days ago. What was the cause? Well, as it turns out, those that were fired participated in silent protest alongside protesters in the 2020 George Floyd uprisings. And they were photographed taking a knee alongside protesters. Those people have been dismissed. Now, it was not said that they were dismissed for that reason because they serve at the pleasure of the president. But it just so happens that those that were dismissed participated in those protests. If this is not sending alarm signals throughout everyone's body, then I swear to God, there is no one that is paying attention. They are setting the stage, right? This is winner takes all right now. So again, when I go back to Eric Swalwell puffing out his chest and talking about accountability come midterms, there is going to be no fucking midterms. Because who is going to be left inside of our military are going to be Donald Trump sycophants. And they are the ones that are going to carry out the orders. And you're thinking to yourself, well, what orders would those be, Danielle? It's still illegal, right? I mean, we still have law and order, do we? Because this is what I talked about earlier today with Waj on Democracy-ish. And I thought that it was important because, again, this is something that isn't being covered by mainstream media because everyone is so obsessed with the clickable headlines. This should be major fucking news. Thank you to Ken Klippenstein, who did a whole rundown of this. Trump's NSPM 7 labels common beliefs as terrorism indicators. New directives targets anti-Christian, anti-American, and anti-capitalism opinions. Pay attention. With the mainstream media, he writes, distracted by made-for-TV drama of James Comey's indictment, Trump has signed a little notice national security directive identifying anti-Christian and anti-American views as indicators of radical left violence. Called National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, it's being referred to as NSPM 7 by administration insiders. This is what Donald Trump has said to his security advisor, Stephen Goebbels Miller. This is the first time in American history that there is an all-of-government effort to dismantle left-wing terrorism. Ken Klippenstein writes, it's hard to overstate how much different NSPM 7 is from the over 200 executive orders Trump has frantically signed since coming back into office. An executive order publicly lays out the course of day-to-day federal government operations, whereas a national security directive is a sweeping policy decree for the defense, foreign policy, intelligence, and law enforcement apparatus. National security directives are often secret, but in this case, the Trump administration chose to publish NSPM 7 only the 7th since he's come into office. Why does this matter? Because you see, those makeshift detention centers that have been built by Donald Trump donors that received massive contracts in order to throw up and expand these detention centers for quote unquote undocumented criminals, that was just the beginning. Who is actually going to be residents of these facilities before being shipped out to places like Uganda and El Salvador? Dissenters. Those that dissent against Donald Trump, he is getting ready to label as terrorists. Last week, he went after the largest funder of democratic politics and organizations. Last week, George Soros, the multi-billionaire, the leader of Open Society, one of the largest philanthropic groups in the country, if not the world. He is going after the funders, and what he is going to do to these philanthropic organizations is throw the IRS at them, put them and wrap them into legal mumbo jumbo, strangle the money that they release to on the ground organizations. And he's going to shut them down one by one, and not just shut them down with going after, like billing issues or whatever. He's trying to label them as terrorist organizations and terrorist funders, and then turn those employees into criminals. And once you're labeled as a terrorist, guess what? You forego any civil liberties. Then he doesn't have to follow the Constitution, not like he's following it now. But if he's labeled you a terrorist or your organization a terrorist, you're not provided legal counsel, representation, habeas corpus. None of that applies to you. That is the goal. So you catch a few major fish, you squash them, and then everyone else is chilled into silence. But knowing also, dear friends, that your silence is not going to save you. Because eventually the machine will come for you, because that is how empires and fascists work. Which brings me to this. And I really want to dig into this, and I really want to connect the dots to folks, because I think that it's really important. We're here right now, not just because of Donald Trump and his maniac brood led by Stephen Miller. We're also here because of white moderates. We're here because there are people that believed that they were going to reason their way out of Donald Trump's descent into full-on authoritarian dictator. That those people who showed their full ass after Charlie Kirk was murdered, that wanted to whitewash his entire life's work because of the way that he was killed. How you were killed does not erase how you have lived. But in this country, it creates some type of comfortable amnesia, particularly for white moderates who want to say that, oh, he was, a debater and he was disagreeable and all of these things, but, he did politics the right way. And I want to read to you this quote by Martin Luther King Jr., a letter from a Birmingham jail, as I go into the conversation that Ezra Klein had a couple of days ago with one of the most astounding intellectuals that this country has had to offer in Ta-Nehisi Coates. And I think that it's important to begin my analysis on this with Martin Luther King's quote on white moderates, because there are too many people, also a ton of people who follow me, who always want to stop me when I'm talking about white people to say, oh, not me, not me, not me. But I've continued to say that if these people are in your family, if these people are your colleagues, and all you have done is stayed silent while you send a little bit of money to Act Blue, or every couple of months put on a pussy hat and think that that is you being activated, folks, I will argue with you that you have a lot more work to do. Because the fact that you would even interrupt and stop Black people or people of color from speaking their truth so that you don't get lumped in. Meanwhile, our entire existence is about being lumped in. It's about never being treated or seen as individuals that have self-determination and thought that is separate from the group or community that we are lumped into. Ask yourself why you must disrupt rather than listen. And really take in and take stock as to the kind of unlearning that needs to happen in order for us to actually have the multiracial democracy that we want, that we deserve. And so for folks, particularly white folks that always want to silo themselves out, that is being part of the problem. And so I want to read this, and then we will go through the ways in which Ezra Klein is like the epitome of this right now. This was written in April 1963, and I swear to God, it could have been written yesterday. First, I must confess that over the last few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the white citizen's counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically feels he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from the people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from the people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. I need for people, particularly white folks who listen to me, who listen to Waj, to take stock of the people around you and to take stock of what you've been indoctrinated to believe. It is not enough to just say, oh, we should have collective justice if your work, if your day to day isn't in that justice, if that comes with you speaking out, with activating on a regular basis, not to make yourself feel good, but because it is a moral imperative to do so. That's the fucking difference. So I moved to this place where I want to remind you of the piece that Ezra Klein had the audacity to write following the murder of Charlie Kirk, which was this: Charlie Kirk was practicing politics the right way. And he wrote this: you can dislike much of what Kirk believed, and the following statement is still true. Kirk was practicing politics in exactly the right way. He was showing up to campuses and talking with anyone who would talk to him. He was one of the era's most effective practitioners of persuasion. When the left thought its hold on the hearts and minds of college students was nearly absolute, Kirk showed up again and again to break it. Slowly, then all at once, he did. College-age voters shifted sharply right in the 2024 election. Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a rebuttal that was a masterclass. Charlie Kirk redeemed. A political class finds its lost cause. This was at Vanity Fair. By ignoring the rhetoric and actions of the Turning Point USA founder, pundits and politicians are sanitizing his legacy. Kirk subscribed to some of the most disreputable and harmful beliefs that this country has ever known. But it is still chilling to think that those beliefs would be silenced by a gunshot. The tragedy is personal. Kirk was robbed of his life, and his children and family will forever live with the knowledge that a visual record of that robbery is just an internet search away. And the tragedy is national. Political violence ends conversations and invites war. Its rejection is paramount to a functioning democracy and a free society. Political violence is a virus, Klein noted. This assertion is true. It is also at odds with Kirk's own words. It's not that Kirk merely, as Klein put it, defended the Second Amendment. It's that Kirk endorsed hurting people to advance his preferred policy outcomes. That is the truth. That is the nuance that white moderates always want to abandon so that they can cling to their whiteness, as opposed to recognizing the poison that is a part of their community, a part of the indoctrination that says that if you put on a suit, you can't possibly be a Klansman. That, oh, if you're willing to go sit down and talk to college students who are of a different ethnicity or religion than you, then, oh, that must mean that you are open-minded. Move away from the very elementary idea of what white nationalism is. They have graduated from burning crosses to tiki torches and khaki pants. They have moved away. Well, up until recently, I was going to say from lynching, but we see that that's making a comeback as well. So these two pieces were up following the death of Charlie Kirk. And then Ezra Klein decided to invite Ta-Nehisi onto his show. And folks, I will tell you, it is the best 68 minutes that you will probably ever spend. Because in this conversation, in this podcast, it is so clear that Ezra Klein needs to cling to this, oh, we just need to play the game of politics better with an absence of history that guides how we got here and why This country has not moved forward in the leaps and bounds that it has needed to. You listen to Ta-Nehisi, bring him receipts in the most gorgeous way. And you understand still why we find ourselves in a place where we are yet still don't understand that our fates are intertwined. Ezra Klein wrote this. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a writer I admire, somebody I have a genuine friendship with. In the days after Kirk's murder, he published a piece in Vanity Fair that was pretty harshly critical of what I had written and what he saw as a whitewashing of this man's legacy and role in politics. Coates compared what I was doing there to the whitewashing of the Southern cause after the Civil War. I think it would be the height of hypocrisy, he writes, for me to say that we need to reach across divides and disagreements, but then not talk across my own. So I wanted to talk to Ta-Nehisi about the piece and the aftermath of Kirk's murder, but also about a disagreement or question that I think is about more than Kirk. There's something very unsettled in the broad coalition of the left around the work of politics, around who we talk to and when and how. When is that work moral? When is it necessary? When is it betrayal? Ezra Klein says this. In many ways, we've stopped doing politics. We've written a lot of people off, and in writing them off, are losing, and we're unable to protect ourselves, unable to protect them, and just unable to make good change in the world. I think that this, forgive me, is dishonest. I think it's a dishonest assessment. Because what you are basically saying is that in order for us to have these conversations, that I must allow these people to deny my humanity. I must succumb and think that their hatred of me is somehow worthy of debate and conversation, as opposed to airing out how white nationalism has become mainstreamed. Referring to transgender people as anything other than human beings, as anything other than the names that they offer up to you, is not a difference of opinion, it's dehumanization. The fact that you want to compare a woman having bodily autonomy and deciding when, how, and if she wants to have a baby, raise a child in this fucking economy, and compare that choice to the Holocaust, that's not something that is worthy of fucking debate. That is disgusting and offensive to Jewish people and survivors of the Holocaust. That you would take their inability to have self-determination that was robbed from them by Hitler to a woman making a choice about whether or not she wants to enter into motherhood. I want you to listen to a piece of how Ta-Nehisi responds. And I think that it's important, I think that it's important because, folks, I do believe that there is a piece of this that requires conversation. I do believe that, right? Like, I do believe that we should have conversation, but you have to be willing to understand what is worth debate and what is not.
Don't take any joy in saying this, but we sometimes soothe ourselves by pointing out that love, acceptance, warmth, that these are powerful forces. I believe they are. I also believe hate is a powerful force. I believe it's a powerful, powerful unifying force. And I think Charlie Kirk was a hate monger. You know, I really need to say this over and over again. I have a politic that rejects violence, that rejects political violence. I take no joy in the killing of anyone, no matter what they said. But if you ask me what the truth of his life was, and the truth of his public life, I would have to tell you it's hate. I would tell you I'd have to tell you it is the usage of hate and the harnessing of hate towards political ends.
But this is the politics that Ezra Klein and other white moderates think that we just need to be better at playing. They had continued to say that before his passing, they'd said, we need a Charlie Kirk on the left. We need a Joe Rogan on the left. What are you talking about? It is pure anti-intellectualism to say that we would need to model the lies and the very puddled nature of their debate strategies and saying that we need to do that on the right. Like, do you think that if a person that looked like me, a Black woman, pulled up to some, I don't know, evangelical fucking college campus and sat down with a chair and said, debate me, you think that I don't end up hanging from somebody's tree? You think that I'm not putting myself in harm's way? And to deny that very fact, again, is to negate history and to negate what these people are using their platforms to say and to spread. And the fact that an Ezra Klein and others would say, like, we just need to talk and listen is the privilege that they are using their whiteness to do so with. And basically telling the rest of us, well, you need to just, let go of your Blackness and your queerness and your Muslimness and your disability and your transness and just be neutral. Not when it's not your life that is being debated. It's not your humanity that is being debated. Because you still think that you're going to skate by. And every time during this conversation where Ta-Nehisi wants to say, look, he says, I get that you don't want to talk about history here. You just want to be in the present. But like, I need to give you some historical notes that aren't just about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael and others, Fred Hampton and others that were assassinated by the state. But I can give you historical references, and most Black people can, whose family grew up in these United States, who were run out of sundown towns for looking at somebody the wrong way, for speaking in a wrong tone, and picked up in the middle of the night and escaped before they were lynched. That's not distant history. So it is important for us, and Klein wanted to say, well, we are losing, as if this is all some type of great game that's being played right now. And that's, again, where I take issue. What is happening right now at the hands of Donald Trump and this regime is not a game. There are 1,200 men right now that are missing from Ron DeSantis's alligator Alcatraz. They were never entered into the federal data system that is supposed to record the names, ages, and whereabouts of all of these people that they're rounding up. Folks, it's 1,200 fucking people that are missing. Do you see that at the top of the news hour on CNN, ABC? No. Why is that? Because these people don't have the complexion for the protection. But I'm telling you that if 1,200 people can be disappeared that happen to be supposedly undocumented, but we don't know because there's no due process, don't think that you can't be disappeared next. We have got to give a shit. And Ezra Klein couches this as if it is a game that we are playing and real people are losing their lives, including Charlie Kirk. The escalation of violence that is happening, both at the hands of this administration and at the hands of their deputized white vigilantes in Michigan, in Texas, in North Carolina. All that happened, these shootings over the weekend. It's not a game. And yet, white moderates continue to couch it as this, as if it's something that we need to win at this moment, as opposed to an existential crisis and threat against the future of this country.
It's going to be close for a very, very long time. I would like for it to be less close too. But
do you think that's within our power or not really?
Listen, I have a friend, and I'm not going to out him. He's a mutual friend of ours who always says, this is the best set of white folks we have ever had in the entire history of Black America. This is the most woke. This is the least racist. This is the most aware group that we have had. You know what I mean? Like, for us, and for those of us who ground ourselves in a larger tradition, this is not close. Like, this is a, remarkable time, in terms of our freedom, as writers and journalists to speak to people, in terms of the amount of people who are empowered and have some amount of privilege and could just look away and are not looking away. It's not a great time politically. You understand what I'm saying? But it's just, it's not the worst either. No.
And when he said that this is the most woke that white people in this country have been, this is the most, right, that we have had of white people on our side. And by our side, I mean on the side of collective justice and liberation. I got to tell you that I wanted to throw up. Because if this is the best, I'm sick. Because Black folks are still being lynched. 1,200 plus men have been disappeared. White vigilantes are using churches as fucking shooting practice. And this is the best that we have? This is what I want folks to take stock in. Because there needs to be more than just this, veneer of justice. There needs to be more than a veneer of quote unquote wokeness. There actually needs to be deep understanding and grief about where this country is and where it has always been. But because of this collective need to coddle and create this fantasy, have ignored. I encourage all of you to go to the New York Times. Hopefully there is a free trial, there is a gift article, and listen to this conversation. Because it's so good and so real about the true difference between where Black people see America and what white moderates are willing to tolerate. And until there is a bridging, an actual real bridging, which does not mean that Black people then just accept their second-class citizenship. They just accept hatred and lies. But that white people accept that America is all the things, good, bad, and obscene. And that they and their ancestors are all of the things, good, bad, and wildly obscene. It is not enough to just set yourself apart because you are part of the entire story of this country and where we are. And until we take deep responsibility for that, we're never going to get anywhere. And I close out today with this. A clip from Barack Obama's time and interview overseas. And I always think that it is important to remember it isn't just about denying the awfulness of America. It's about accepting it and knowing that we still have the potential to be better. That's what it means to be possible. It isn't to deny reality so that you live inside of this Disneyland fantasy about who America is and how it came to be. It is to understand all of the dirty, disgusting parts of it and still believe that there is an opportunity for us to be better. That's what we're calling for. And that's should be, folks, a collective call. And that's the problem.
The moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, except it doesn't bend on its own. It bends because we pull it in the direction of justice. And when we don't, it doesn't happen automatically. Just like democracy is not self-executing. It requires effort. It requires will. What I'm feeling hopeful about, I guess to get to your final point, is I'm meeting a lot of young people and people who are young at heart who are standing up for their convictions even when it's hard. And I think us lifting them up and supporting them and embracing them and emulating them, that I think is what gives me hope. That's the part of the human spirit that I believe will triumph in the end. And it may be bumpy and it may take time, but yes, that's one of my convictions that I act on, I try to act on every single day. That's what I believe. It's a leap of faith that I think is worth making.
And that's the thing that I will end on. Do I think that the current state of America is absolutely disastrous and heartbreaking? Yes, I do. But do I still think that this project is worth fighting for? This project of democracy, the creation of a real multiracial democracy and not democracy-ish? Yes, I do. Even with all of the truth that I know about this country. And so it isn't about, I don't want to make white people feel bad about themselves. And and we should just erase history and erase truth and all of these things and resurrect statues to the Confederacy and, show the greatness of white men on our ships and all of these things that this administration is doing in order to champion a new era of white nationalism. You can know the truth and still believe in the possibility of a thing. That's what they fail to understand about what Obama has called the enduring American spirit, is that we should be trusted in understanding and digesting the truth about this country and then fighting to actualize its founding principles that were never actualized. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. I want to say again that none of my content goes behind a paywall. So if you could do me the kind kind favor of liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, sharing this content on your platforms. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. I also want to shout out the super stickers and super thanks. This is independent media, and every single dollar, every single cent goes towards me being able to create the kind of content with integrity and honesty that you deserve. So thank you to Estella. Thank you to Susan, as always, the best moderator. Zoe, Megan, Ghostface Killer, Rachel, DC, Doozy, Trash Panda, Ernst, Ghostface Killer, again, appreciate you. Shannon, thank you so very much for your generosity. And for those that are watching on Substack, if you have the ability, just hit subscribe. But if you do have a few coins, think about becoming a paid subscriber and continue to support independent journalism. Folks, I will be back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, and we will also have Town Hall Tuesday. So come with your questions ready for the end of the show. As always, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. I will see you back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Be well.